Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. Today we'll be asking this: who should have been Deathbringer's second target? To preface this discussion, this conversation is set before the real target is revealed. This is because I have some concerns of who the actual target is. To me, it doesn't make sense why Marcyr would have this dragon killed, so I have an alternative opinion. Here's a bit of context. We first meet Deathbringer in Book 3. Glory first talks to him when she's disguised. She asks why Deathbringer is in the Icewind Kingdom, and nonchalantly he says he needs to assassinate a couple of dragonets. These being the Dragonets of Destiny. We know that he was sent by Marcyr to kill Glory because a rainwing is not part of the prophecy. Deathbringer comments that he's here to assassinate multiple dragonets, although he never tells us which one he was meant to kill. So that begs the question, who is Deathbringer's target after Glory? Because we're looking at the Dragonets of Destiny only, we can easily narrow down our choices. Between the four, we would have to point out reasons why Marcyr would want a particular dragonet dead. We're looking at Marcyr's reasoning because he was the one who sent Deathbringer in the first place. I'll quickly go over who would be least likely to be killed. Starting with Sunny, she will most likely be the one who isn't assassinated. Other than the fact that everyone can tolerate Sunny, she doesn't pose any difficulty to Marcyr and other dragons. She's a very charismatic and capable leader. Sunny's also very smart and a critical thinker among the dragonets. The only thing that held her down was her missing tail barb and colorful scales. Another factor that would be a detriment is that no one really listened to what Sunny had to say in the majority of the first arc. She's capable of making good decisions and coming up with useful ideas. Marcyr wanting to remove Sunny would be objectively useless. Under the mountain, he was even surprised when Sunny attacked him to defend her friends. Ultimately, removing Sunny from this team would cause more problems than benefits for Marcyr. Now we've got Clay. From the beginning, it's almost certain that Clay is a good asset for the Dragonets of Destiny. When Marcyr first meets Clay under the mountain, Marcyr says these two will do, pointing at Clay and Tsunami. Clay defending his siblings is exactly what Marcyr wanted from him. Marcyr knew that the Dragonets would need protection from anything that came their way, hence why he requested a blood-red egg from the Mudwings. Despite Clay's insatiable hunger, he still manages to care for his friends. Not to mention that he's really supportive of his friends, diving into danger to save them. Once again, Marcyr would be ruining his chances to fulfill the prophecy if Clay was killed. Here we've reached Tsunami and Starflight. There's something else I need to mention for this topic, and that's the alliance between Marcyr and Blister. As many of you know, Blister and Marcyr were allied. This is so Blister could win the war and capture settlements for the Nightwings to live in. This would mean that Blister's opinion would be highly considered to maintain the alliance. Tsunami and Starflight would be big targets because they threatened Blister's power to win the war. Both Tsunami and Starflight knew that Blister murdered Kestrel in the second novel. This detail already put their trust in Blister below zero. If the Dragonets voted to choose the next Sandwing Queen, they would both chime in to mention Blister's contribution on Kestrel's death. It's certain that Blister wouldn't want these two Dragonets to be alive to reveal their actions. Now let's look at them individually. Starflight was tasked by Marcyr to convince his friends to vote for Blister. We already know why Marcyr wanted Blister to win the succession war, but at the time in Book 2, we were still in the dark. This was mostly why Starflight couldn't convince his friends to give the Queen title to Blister. There was no justifiable reason that would have glorified Blister as their decision. If there was no reason to pick her, then why would they vote for her? Keep in mind that Blister was promised a Nightwing to be leading the Dragonets of Destiny. This was evident by Marcyr's push for Starflight to be the natural leader they were looking for. What she didn't know was that no one leads anyone in the group. What Starflight says is just as important as his friend's input. There's no doubt that Starflight not taking the initiative to be the absolute leader would diminish his relationship with Marcyr and Blister. Furthermore, Marcyr is highly disappointed in Starflight's lacking Nightwing powers. These powers being Mind Reading and Future Sight. Despite the fact Marcyr knows that hatching a Dragonet under the moons would grant these abilities, this information was not disclosed to the Guardians. Whether it was to hide a Nightwing secret or it was not accounted for, Starflight will never get the Nightwing gift. A simple solution would just be to remove him entirely and replace him with a more manipulative Nightwing. But why doesn't he just get killed when he's in the Nightwing Kingdom in Book 4? Well, Starflight is the Nightwing's only source of information about the Dragonets and the Rainwings. Killing him instantly would be a strategic failure. After the Nightwings are dealt with, then it would be the most optimal time to remove Starflight completely. But what about Tsunami? Why would Morrisier and Blister want to murder her? In Book 2, we actively see Blister trying to control Queen Coral. This fact is obvious to Tsunami and her friends. The dragonets try to convince Queen Coral that Blister is not a worthy ally, but they are sent to prison. The command was issued by Queen Coral, but we know that Blister just wanted the dragonets to herself. Tsunami's lack of allegiance to Blister is one reason to remove her. Another would be her constant arguing. Because Tsunami dislikes Blister, Queen Coral would constantly have to choose sides between her ally and her daughter. Let's say that Tsunami stayed with Queen Coral and acted as another advisory body in her council. Tsunami would be able to provide more insight because of her vastly unique experience among the council members. She was held under a mountain for several years after all. This newfound experience may sway Queen Coral's outlook on some dragons, maybe even her ally Blister. Removing Tsunami from the equation would ensure that Blister would have complete control over Queen Coral, and by extent, the Seawing Kingdom. Furthermore, Tsunami would no longer be heir to the throne. Blister would need to argue with the heir, she can just convince the heir with her silver tongue. That's all purely hypothetical though, but it's a possibility. Here's one detail that hits the nail on the coffin of who should be killed. The false dragonets of destiny. Because Morrisier had false dragonets of destiny, he wanted to choose the best from each group. Theoretically, he would sew them together like Frankenstein's monster. So what redeeming factors would Squid and Fatespeaker have to replace the originals? Well, we already know that Squid's constant whining had him exiled from the false dragonets team. This means that technically Tsunami would have been the best Seawing to have, even if it was against Blizzard's interest. Now on to Fatespeaker. Morrisier resents Fatespeaker and Starflight entirely, but they were his two choices. To reiterate, Starflight has no powers and no real desire to be a leading figure. He's not an ideal dragon to the Nightwings. Meanwhile, Fatespeaker could be a more promising member. Although her future-seeking ability is neither confirmed or denied, it's much better than a Nightwing with absolutely no powers. Fatespeaker also possesses an underlying confidence that Starflight simply does not have in his character before his arc. Starflight is always thinking, making up solutions in his head, but we also have Fatespeaker, speaks out her thoughts instantly and could potentially have Nightwing powers. And who knows, maybe she does have powers, but it was hindered by environmental factors. Perhaps on the brightest night, her egg had only been seen by one of the moons rather than all of them. Besides that, I think we have an answer. Based on the information here, I believe that Deathbringer's second target should have been Starflight from the beginning. Do remember that this was just hypothetical, and let me know what you think of the theory. Subscribe for more Wings of Fire, and comment on what I should analyze next. And as always, thanks for listening. This video came out a bit late, as in, I was supposed to make this, or I was supposed to finish this a few days ago, but it never came to be. It's not because it was hard to make, but I was just lazy. And the reason why I was lazy was because, well, we already found out the answer in book 4. So I was thinking to myself, should I continue making this video? And in the end I did, and I made my own type of like spin-off theory-ish. I thought it'd be really interesting to have a different opinion to Morrisier, because I don't know why he would want Tsunami killed, except only to please Blister. I get it, but also not really. There's no point in killing probably one of the most useful in terms of combat, like Dragonet, in the team. So yeah, I had some alternative thoughts about that. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. I won't keep you guys for long. I hope you enjoyed the analysis, and thanks for watching.